Welcome to the OtherWorldsGG Community Cast. This is episode number 54. I am Table for Two, and I am joined by Malphite and Alienpickle. Welcome, gentlemen. How y'all doing?
I am doing delightfully. I'm very excited to have Jim back on a normal sleep schedule, so we can actually do a podcast together. My friend, how you been?
I've been pretty great.
Yeah.
Did you finish Lost Ark? Are you done now? You've beat the entire game. Is that right?
No, but well, I won though because I quit playing before I spent money. And that's how you win.
Oh no! I got it.
Excellent.
Yeah, like we were talking about watching Asmongold like lose his ass the other night, and the game's just ridiculous, right? It's like it's one of those games like I'm gonna play it and then it'll get fun, right? Just once you get like 100 hours in, it gets fun. So just stick it out. And it was interesting for like the first 100 hours because I'm leveling up to 50, and everybody's like, well, 50 is where the game actually starts, so you got to power through, and get there. But then at 50, you start the gear score grind. And then it's like, oh, well, I go up a couple 100 points in gear score, and I have to put like blue crystals and orange crystals and purple horseshoes and various like
unicorn
lucky charms
and stuff like
that.
that.
The various lucky charms marshmallows that have to go into this thing. And then it's like, well, those things get really scarce. So then what do? Well, it's like I grind the same content every day. And then I go do these asinine quests. None of the quests in the game are any sort of a challenge. It's just time wasting. Some waste a lot more time than others. It's terrible, egregious time wasting. Like, spend 2 hours doing a quest. You get to the end, and it's like, now you must do the / whatever emote in front of the king to complete the quest. And it's like, I don't have that. Where do I get that? So I go to the wiki. Oh, you have to do this other quest. And then the reward for that quest is this emote. So I go do that quest, and I get to the end, and then it's like, oh, you have to play the Song of the Woods to open this door. Oh, I don't have that. Shit, where do I get that? So I'm like 4 quests deep in the prerequisite to unlock the end of the first one that I started, right? And it's just like, it doesn't warn you. Like, you don't have the prerequisites for this to finish it before you start. You find out at the end when you hit the wall, right?
Ouch.
And it did me that like 4 times in a row, and I just uninstalled it. I was just like, nah, we're done. So
yeah, that's got to be frustrating.
Yeah, it was absolutely frustrating. And then my friend Ralph is still playing it, and he was playing it as much as me, so he's probably 1,000 hours into that shitty game right now. And he's at the point where he's just like, yeah, I'm never gonna actually hit endgame. Because he's to the point where he's got like a 6% chance to upgrade his stuff. It's like grind all day. Do you have 12 hours today? Like, play for 12 hours, and then you get to roll the dice once with a 6% chance to succeed. If you would like more chances to succeed, then please swipe your credit card. Now we're done.
Yeah, that's a terrible model, I think, personally.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a good model for them to make money, but it's a terrible model for the consumer.
Yeah, it's the most Korean game I've ever seen. Like, people were like, dude, Korean games, that's what they are. They're all grind, But it's like, but at least you're playing the game. You're not just going through the motions, and it's almost like Bitcoin, right? It's not actually like the problem that you solved actually did anything. It was just proof of work. And that's kind of what this game is. It's just like proof that my ass was in the seat for 12 hours, so I get to roll the dice and lose. So, yeah.
Well, let's jump on into the game news then, shall we?
Yes, indeed.
So, Hogwarts Legacy is coming out, and there was a state of play that Sony did where they revealed this game, this 15-minute long trailer, and they really went in deep on all the different things that you can do as a student at Hogwarts. And I believe you start in as a 5th year at the School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. And the timeline for this game actually takes place back in the late 1800s. So there's an interesting period of time where we're going to be before all of the stuff that we know from any of the existing lore of Harry Potter.
When did the Harry Potter stuff happen?
The original storyline takes place in the early 90s. So like when Harry Potter starts.
Oh, really?
Going to school,
that was real time, like right then. When the movies were coming out, it was like this is happening right now in Harry Potter.
Well, the movies came out in the early 2000s. The timeline takes place in the early 90s, so it's about a decade off.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not hundreds of years. Like whenever the Fantastic Beasts movie came out.
Yeah, right? that takes place in like the 30s and 40s, somewhere in that time
something
frame.
Like that, right? So it's kind of like they hit different parts in the timeline,
right? And so this game,
Star Trek.
Yeah, and this game's going back to the late 1800s, so it's even further back than all that. So it kind of really helps to differentiate itself. So there's going to be a whole. So in other words, you're managing your expectations because you're not going to be running into like a Dumbledore. You're not going to be running into like a Snape. You're not going to be running into any of this kind of stuff. You're going pretty far back. Now maybe you might see some like earlier family like lineage stuff, but really you're not going to run into any existing characters, which I think is nice because it really opens the doors to tell like a unique story, its own thing. But the cool thing about it is you'll be able to do like your own crafting, your own like you'll be able to have your own fantastic beasts kind of like place to like raise magical animals and do all kinds of stuff. It's pretty robust, the game that they've like built here. So I'm pretty impressed with it.
It was rather freaking me out. Like I was watching the trailer and I'm just like, okay, so the level of detail in everything is crazy, right? It was like back when Skyrim came out and we were just like, oh damn, Skyrim, like, and there's so much game here. Like, will anybody ever see all of it kind of thing? Right. And then I'm seeing this and I'm just like, this is like the new Skyrim kind of thing where it's just like there's a huge amount of detail to everything. And, the trailer was just like that. It was just like, oh, and.
Right. It kept going.
Also can
it was
do this.
Shocking.
And, it's like, oh, would you like Pokemon? We have that.
Kind of, in a way,
Would you like some Dark Souls combat? Yeah, we have that. Would you like to? We have some loot stuff,
making potions and
So the
flying
potion
around on
crafting,
broomsticks and
and that's where they finally, whenever it was like, oh, and you can explore the giant open world.
They also
on your broomstick, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, they also went down this path too of saying that you can pretty much, depending on which direction you go with your character, you can go down darker paths and actually become like a dark witch or wizard as well. So,
I hope that's not like an A/B dialogue choice like BioWare. It was like, like save the children or
murder them.
B, throw the children in the oven. Yeah, which is a very witch thing to do, but
This is true. But anyway, looking forward to that. That comes out later this year, and I've got to say I'm actually really excited for that one.
I'm interested to see how the 1880s setting plays into the mortal realm, the normal Muggles world, because that would be so different, that could be a lot of fun too.
Yeah, and I've always wondered, like, because according to Potter lore, like the Muggle world, at least like the governments are aware of like the wizarding world, like, but they don't really cross paths a lot, but they just know of each other.
Was it like the UFO conspiracy? Like the government knows, but they won't tell you.
I guess in a way, because they talk about too, like with the threat of like Voldemort coming back, they're like, let the Muggles know, or like let the Muggle government or let Parliament know, or something like that there's a potential threat going on, like. Because it's interesting because that actually bleeds over into like the normies kind of world. Like, things do get blown up and normal people do get attacked. And so it kind of becomes interesting at that point. But anyway.
Well, and it certainly get interesting to see. Like I was thinking, 1880s Victorian era England, right? That's a very specific point in time. It evokes images of dirty factories and sort of a real turning point in history, and so it does seem like it'll be a fun place to explore from the Hogwarts side of things.
For sure. All right, well, what else we got coming up here, Malphite?
So Street Fighter 6 was announced. We talked about that on our last news show, but we also are getting a definitive update, the final update for Street Fighter 5, and it includes some interesting features. They're actually providing a cel shading version of the graphics, so you can turn on a filter and get a cel shaded look to your characters, as well as a retro pixel filter. So, having a little bit of fun with it. We'll see how that changes things. Probably not too much, but it is kind of a neat way to build up the anticipation for Street Fighter 6. So.
Wow, actually, the retro pixel filter is pretty sweet looking, though. If you actually go and check that out, because the new Street Fighters have traditionally kind of turned a little bit more with like 3D and their angles and stuff like that. This kind of just turns it into straight up just like looking at like a flat fight, and it makes it look really cool. I don't know, go check it out. I like it.
Monster Hunter Rise is getting an expansion coming out in June called Sunbreak. This kind of hit this month, the news, and we got a pretty decent preview. There's, more monsters, more areas to explore, more, right? We kind of know what Monster Hunter feels like at this point.
Yeah, and honestly, I was disappointed with Monster Hunter World that they didn't just continue to pump expansions out for that, because the game was fine. Like we didn't need like a reboot of the whole game itself. It's just like stick another island on, bring back some other Monster Hunter critters that we haven't seen for 10 years or whatever. Like there's an endless back catalog of different monsters that aren't in the modern games, right? So I hope in the Sunbreak thing that we get even more of those, right? Because there's things from World that aren't in Rise yet. So.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I do agree that if any game could have a almost infinite life cycle, 5-year, 10-year cycle, it seems like Monster Hunter could definitely, pick a game and just keep expanding it.
The game that I want Ark Survival Evolved, but instead of dinosaurs, it's all the Monster Hunter critters.
Oh, that would be fun. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on. Sims 4 in its latest update, it's called Neighborhood Stories, and it added the ability to tell the other AI controlled Sims, the NPC Sims, what to do without, sort of taking them over. But now EA's expanded that, and the other Sims will make major life choices without you being involved at all. So they will adopt pets, have babies, get pregnant, change careers, retire, they'll move. So they're really making it so that your little digital dollhouse is much more of a living, breathing world rather than just a serial killer trapping people in the pool and letting them starve to death simulator.
Wow. So can you role play like you're my mom and you just sit at the kitchen table and criticize other people's life choices?
I'm actually pretty sure you can do that, but the mods for this game have gotten out of control. I mean, you can do pretty much anything in Sims these days, it seems like.
Sweet. Moving on to some Minecraft stuff. It's interesting. The first Minecraft 1.19 snapshot adds the deep. Oh god, I can't even speak. Adds the deep dark biome and frogs. So for the first time, I guess ever, they're adding in some frogs to Minecraft, huh?
Yeah, the patch notes for this are pretty spectacular. I gotta say, it sounds like a children's show. Frogs can jump. Frogs can swim. Frogs can walk on land. Frogs can croak. Frogs can eat small slimes, causing a slime ball to drop. Frogs can eat small magma cubes, causing a frog light block to drop.
Ooh.
Each frog variant drops a specific frog light block, and 3 frog light blocks are added, a light source block.
Yeah, that's pretty nifty. I mean, bravo to Microsoft for continuing to keep Minecraft going with new stuff and new things and adding all kinds of stuff. Java version or not, like, it's pretty interesting that they're continuing to.
Well, I saw where they basically merged in the Java version as part of the Bedrock version now, right? It's all like a unified launcher.
Well, it's a unified launcher.
It's not a separate purchase, or you do have to buy both.
I think they are
separate purchases.
Still separate.
Yeah.
But there is a unified launcher, and the features are relatively close, right? They've tried to establish parity between Bedrock and
I mean, if you have Game Pass, then you've already got the non-Java version and the Dungeons version of the games. Yeah. But I bought Minecraft years ago. I think most people at this point have Minecraft. I mean, I think I bought Minecraft back when it was like, version like 1. Like
it's like if you don't have it by now, you don't need it. Because it's like,
well, if you don't have any interest, if you've never bought the Java version, there's no real need to buy it right now. Because if you've got access to it through this other stuff, like, you can get it on your frickin' phone and play it with people who are playing on PC. So I mean, like,
yeah, but the mod stuff, right? Like, one of the things that I love in the Java version is the map mod that just, I just hit tab, I get a mini map, I can find out where the heck I am so I don't get lost, and Bedrock ain't got that.
I mean,
if Bedrock just had mod support like the Java one does, then we'd be good. Like, they could have, and also, please, like, curate your own mod front end for it so that people don't have to go to these shady ass Minecraft.
Well, but that's the thing is Bedrock has that, right? It has a store for mods. It has an ecosystem, and that's really the big differentiator is that they aren't going to do that for Java. They don't want to do that for Java because they've already done it for Bedrock. The only reason... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I mean, the Bedrock thing is like, the mods are different, and it's also like, hey, come pay for these things, right? Like, it's like, I want a map mod. Oh, that'll be $5. It's like, well, wait, no, because that already exists. And like, I see where, creators are putting their skin packs up and stuff, and they're putting, stuff like that, but I don't see, like, they had the shader thing for the Java, and you can't, I guess you can do that now in Bedrock, but it's kind of a pain in the ass. But it's like, well, just get RTX, bro. So I don't know. It's just, it's two different things, but they look very similar.
A couple other features of the 119 update: mangrove blocks, mud and mud bricks, and more, to me, very interesting is they're adding 3D directional audio. So you're actually going to have sort of a more immersive soundscape for this, which I guess will help you find the frogs when you're...
Well, that's cool. You can get your digital Dolby Theater surround experience, and
absolutely,
so you can hear those frogs creeping up on you.
Yes, and there are tadpoles, I should mention. You do get baby frogs as well, so they are all in on the frogs.
No kidding.
Vampire the Masquerade is getting a Telltale-like game called Swan Song, and this is really kind of trying to build up the world, immerse you in the story. It's much more engaging in terms of the background of it. And this one particularly takes place in Boston. Each of these games tends to have, be focused in a real city. So it looks pretty interesting. I mean, obviously, very story heavy, lots of dialogue. So something to keep a lookout for. This is, interestingly, on PC, a Epic Store exclusive, and it comes out in May.
Excellent. The next Stellaris expansion is called Overlord, and it's all about being in charge. Well, I'm confused. Aren't you already in charge?
You are.
A new expansion is coming for Stellaris, just like clockwork, with the upcoming Overlord pack set to overhaul the relationships between ruling powers and their smaller subject states. The goal of the expansion is to make consolidating their empires under your rule, but not direct control, a more interesting experience than in the base game. See, yeah, just more changing my game, I guess, but that's cool.
That is kind of Paradox's MO at this point. Change the game continuously.
The expansion is intended to include new ways to be both a kind ruler or an oppressive one, with new megastructures intended to give you new ways to control and elevate your empire. Congratulations. All right.
I don't think we talked much about Babylon's Fall, and I think that kind of matches, excuse me, the industry at large, right? This game was supposed to be a big deal, and it's Platinum Games, very well-respected Japanese developer, published by Square, and it kind of launched, and everybody forgot about it about 2 seconds later, it seems like. The developers came out and said that they are continuing to work on it. They're doing content for season 2 and planned work on season 3 and beyond. They are doing a limited time event with Nier Automata characters to try and pull in that audience, I guess.
You can actually download a beta right now and play the beta on Steam.
Ah, interesting.
Or it's a demo, excuse me, it's a demo. I used the wrong word there.
The PC Gamer reviewer, Anne-Marie Coyle, kind of summed up her experience with the game, or her opinion, as saying, far from the consistently exhilarating, high-octane combat, unique characters, and fascinating worlds that the studio is synonymous with crafting, Babylon's Fall crumbles under the weight of bland design, repetitive gameplay, and prioritization of paywalls over players. So it seems like the developers are going to have a long way to go to win back fans and an audience for this game, which is a shame. I wish it had done a little better there.
Yeah, this is one that I'm not familiar with, so I'll have to dive in a little deeper and take a look at it at some point. Speaking of MMOs, though, the free-to-play MMO Lord of the Rings Online is getting more gorgeous. I mean, congratulations to this game. It's getting its 15th anniversary coming up here with some updates. Apparently, they're doing some visual updates. I guess they're opening up some classes like High Elves, and stuff like that. So this is pretty interesting stuff to see that Lord of the Rings Online is still going this strong. It's probably going to get some rejuvenation to it with this new show coming out on Amazon. So
yeah, it certainly won't hurt their fortunes to be around and be available when the Second Age TV show starts.
So congratulations to them.
Yeah, Sierra's founders apparently got bored during lockdown, and so they've decided to make a new game, their first in more than 20 years. It is a Colossal Cave 3D game for VR and PC.
Yeah, I'd heard about this. This is pretty cool. Good for them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Crystal Cave is certainly remembered fondly by a lot of us old school PC gamers, so I'm interested to see what they do with it.
Very nice. What else we got here? The Google Doc sometimes gets a little funny if you're hovering in the wrong spot. It covers up text. So apparently, for you PGA fans, there's going to be no new golf for you this year, unfortunately. In terms of video games, that is, of course. EA's new PGA Tour game is going to be delayed by a full year.
This is a little confusing because there is a completely different game that is PGA Tour based that came out for 2021. So I don't know if EA bought back the license and it's exclusive, or they're going to have, competing golf games with the PGA Tour license, or what's going on there. So confess to a little bit of ignorance, but at least EA's installment, which they haven't had a PGA golf game for quite a while, since Tiger Woods. No, because they did a Rory somebody one at one point in like 2016, 2017. So, but it has been quite a while.
There's a new space battle game coming out called how do you pronounce this? Is
Fabular?
Fabular, yeah. It's called Fabular. It is a medieval spaceship battle with swords and axes as an action RPG. So it's like a top-down thing. You're a spaceship that wields swords and axes at your other spaceship.
Does it have like two big buff arms hanging off the front of the ship?
They're not two big buff arms, but if you look in the show notes here, you'll see that.
I figured it would be like two big Schwarzenegger arms just bolted on the front of the spaceship.
Is it like kind of like the birds with arms memes that they have out there? Yeah,
exactly that meme. Yes, thank you.
It's kind of similar to that, but you just don't see the big beefy arms. But I think the heart is probably there though. There's a really awesome trailer that kind of showcases this. This is a unique idea, and I'm kind of down with that. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be my jam, but I like the fact that it's unique. So there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be fun to see what they do with it.
This actually reminds me hugely of an ancient Apple II game called Bilestode. I'll just let you Google that, because if this was knights and not spaceships, and it had like a big map, and you would just beat the shit out of each other. So at like 2 frames a second.
Oh, of course, yeah. It doesn't ring a bell. I'll have to go look that up. In news that shouldn't be news, in my opinion, a new game just launched with full crossplay support on all platforms. Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, in this case. But the reason I say it shouldn't be news is because every game should be launching with full crossplay. There's no reason in this day and age that we have to have islands of people that can't play together. It's just silly. It is a little bit of news though, because Borderlands 3, which was supposed to have crossplay, it actually was pulled from the PlayStation versions of the game late in the development process due to a disagreement with Sony. So I guess they worked out whatever that issue is for Tiny Tina's Wonderland, and hopefully we'll see it come back to Borderlands 3 at some point.
Nice. Well, there's a new game that's out, and it's got reviews with a roundup before its launch here. It's called Ghostwire Tokyo, and most places are giving it fairly favorable reviews. This is one that I've been keeping my eyes on, sort of briefly, and not too intensely, but it does spark my interest. Are you interested in this one, Malphite?
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of initially talked about as a horror game, and it is not a horror game. It is an action game. One of the gameplay trailers, kind of made that clear. Alienpickle and I were talking about this just before we started recording a little bit, and you've actually played it. I haven't gotten around to it, Jim. So what were your thoughts having spent a little time hands-on?
It's interesting. It's very much like a shootery kind of thing. If you like Control, it kind of is like Japanese mystical Control instead of the more like Americanized Warehouse 13 kind of Control. Yeah. But yeah, very similar thing.
Interesting.
Just instead of like possessed zombie people or whatever, it's like headless schoolgirls and Japanese businessmen ghosts, and the guys running around with umbrellas look exactly like Slender Man, which I think anybody that sees it is going to be exactly that. Well, so, it's interesting. A lot of people had this idea like, oh, this is going to be like some kind of jump scare, the Ring kind of game. And it's like, no, it's actually Doom kind of thing, but with more spirits and a lot of like possession of people and stuff, kind of weirdness. Yeah.
This should be free on Game Pass on PC and Xbox, right? Because it's a Bethesda studio.
I don't know about that. I didn't see it on there.
Okay, maybe I'm misremembering that.
Well, you know why? Because it's an Epic exclusive. So no, it won't be.
Was this one of those things that came out before was in play before the whatnot?
It must have been, because it's an Epic exclusive thing. You can't find it on Steam or anywhere.
Interesting. Okay, so it'll eventually.
Or wait a minute. No, it was it on Steam? Maybe it was. I might be thinking about this other. Steam. Okay, different game that I was.
No, it's on Steam.
Never mind.
But it is not on Game Pass. I just did a look for it.
As a game journalist, sometimes I just make shit up.
Well, moving on to some specific Xbox and PC news, there is a port of a game that came to PC, and it's not doing so well. It's kind of par for the course, really. But Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origins, kind of sucks, according to a lot of reviews out there. So,
and that's the one that's the Epic exclusive. Sorry, because I was looking at both of them this week, and that's it, not Tokyo.
Okay. Yeah, that one is definitely Epic exclusive, the Final Fantasy Origins.
Yeah, it's really a shame. You'd think that by now, like they could get a handle on porting things to the PC a little bit easier than they have, but all well.
Yeah, and I saw, I was in a little bit of a rush doing our show notes this morning, so I apologize, but I swear there's another story further on that was talking about the technical issue behind this.
Well, what's the tech problem with it? Because I hadn't heard any tech stuff. I just heard people saying like, this isn't a real Final Fantasy game.
Oh, well, that may also be true. I swear that I had an article in our show notes and I can't find it now. Maybe it'll.
You sure it wasn't like Elden Ring's a shitty port, but we gave it 10 of 10 everywhere?
No, specifically with this game, the issue was apparently the hair. There's a bunch of characters with fur jackets, and it will drop the frame rate of the game down to 25 frames a second on a 3090 because it's doing so much simulation of the fur, apparently. So Yikes. That seems like an easy fix, right? You could just downscale the effects on the hair, the fur simulation, and maybe that would make a big difference. So here's hoping for a quick fix.
Yeah, well, and speaking of Elden Ring, Valve is addressing the Elden Ring Steam Deck performance issues. Good for them. The funny,
but can they address it on Xbox and address it on normal PC as well, please? That would be great.
Well, Valve has no control over that, so we're just talking about the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
Valve is addressing the Steam Deck version of things, so they can't control the other consoles.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying, like, how do they fix a problem that is inherent in every version of the game?
Well,
on the Steam Deck, recompile all the shaders, I guess.
It has to do with memory management. I guess the game makes a ton of memory management calls, and that was tripping up the Steam Deck specifically. So they optimized that part of the Steam Deck code.
Okay. Well, you'll have to test that out for us in about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Your Steam Deck shows up.
We are waiting. I am eagerly anticipating the arrival of my Steam Deck here. So it's coming today. Some point, hopefully.
Do you think your headset will make it all the way to the end of the driveway so you don't even have to pause the show when you walk down there?
It doesn't make it that far, sadly. No, it would not work that far. But interesting new game has hit Steam called Core Keeper, and it is a co-op survival game that blends elements of Stardew Valley, Terraria, and Valheim, and kind of remixes them into a new, relatively unique experience. The graphics are kind of an overhead 3/4 Diablo style perspective, very, crunchy pixel art, 16-bit style visuals.
Yeah, it's top-down Terraria mixed with a little Minecraft kind of thing. I'm probably about 30 hours into it at this point.
Oh, okay, great.
Good
Great.
time.
You don't have the Valheim boss encounters? Have you?
But you do.
Those?
Oh
Okay.
yeah. I've killed the first boss, which is like a giant slime, and he wasn't too hard, but it's like you go in and you get deleted a couple of times, and then you realize, like, oh, much like Valheim, I have to prepare the environment before I trigger this fight. It's like I need to make the room a little bigger. I need maybe a tunnel to run down, and then I have to light the area and kill all the trash mobs, and then there's a bunch of like slime residue that's on the floor that'll slow you down and get you killed. So get the shovel out and dig all the slime off the floor, and then I'm ready to go in and fight this thing. And he wasn't so bad once I did that, and I had like the best armor and best weapon that I could make. But you have to do a lot of exploring. Like some of the ores, like tin was a bit rare, and now I'm swimming in it now that I don't need it. But you have to like uncover a lot of map to figure out where the stuff is so that you can make the stuff to get in and kill the boss. You'll meet the boss a lot sooner than you'll have the stuff to be ready to fight him. And that's kind of interesting, because then, you feel a sense of progression, because it's like, oh, that guy deleted me like 5 times, and then the 6th time I was finally like worthy of it. And then I found the next tier of critters, and just like a normal guy is as deadly as that boss was. And these are just like the normal ogres that are running around in the like castle-y looking zone, and it's just like, wow. I guess I have to level up some more to be able to just kill normal trash mobs now. They're pretty scary. So good game though. I'm wondering if it's like balanced to be co-op mostly or not, because solo against some of this stuff is getting ridiculous. So, but yeah, it's a good game though, definitely.
Good to hear. So Halo Infinite has had some prominent members of the team leave Xbox Game Studios, and Microsoft's head of the Xbox Game Studios division, Matt Booty,
which sounds like the character name from Buckaroo Banzai, but that's okay.
It's John Big Booty.
Yeah, that's right.
So, he said it. This is sort of inevitable. The project's going, one way, and certain team members have a vision that's different, and so they decide to go on and do something else.
Hey, whenever he does like the weekly conference call, do they call it the booty call?
So, what's funny about this though? I was just thinking is like, how can this guy be taken seriously at times? Where it's like, there's a quote in here that says, "There's always going to be turnover of leaders. It's inevitable." Booty said. That's terrible phrasing. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's like he's talking out his ass.
The jokes just write themselves. Let's.
I'm sorry, Matt Booty.
Matt Booty.
It's
blame your parents.
Seriously, Buckaroo Banzai. There's characters in Buckaroo Banzai. If you look at the credit roll, John Big Booty is like one of the character names. All right. On a serious note, though, Halo Infinite is been kind of in the news a lot lately. There's a lot of fans that are not happy with it, and then you see the tales of people transitioning and leaving, and then there's turnover. I mean, in any industry, you're going to have some kind of level of turnover, but it just doesn't help the image, I think, for some people when they see a game that seems to be struggling in some ways from a player perspective. Not necessarily in a market perspective, but a player perspective, it just can kind of seem awkward. So there's that.
Yeah, it's not like, oh, the only guy that had any skills just left the team, so now it's on station keeping until it dies. I don't think we're in that situation, but
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm still curious why they call it Halo Infinite. Like, does that mean that they're just going to bolt the story modules on, like DLC? Like, you don't need a new engine or anything, just download the new campaign DLC, and here's like another single player chunk, and they could repeat endlessly.
Well, if you play through the campaign, you might have your answer. So,
because it turns into Halo Skyrim at some point.
No, it's kind of the concept of, there's always, the fight always continues. In other words, like, humanity is always going to get attacked, but you should never give up. That's kind of like the themes towards the end that they're trying to instill, and that even though you finish through the campaign, like, the fight's not over, for continuing to fight for humanity's survival.
Like, war never changes in a Ron Perlman sort of way.
Not necessarily that, but it's meant to be kind of like an inspiring thing. Like, nothing can take down, humanity's, like, will to survive. So there's always going to be that one spark of hope somewhere, and as long as there's a spark of hope, humanity can always continue. But anyway, that's the takeaway that I took from the ending of the game. But I definitely feel like they've left it open for it to have more to it. So
they have said they are planning single player, expansion to
good. I'll play. Look, despite the multiplayer woes, the single player stuff I loved. I absolutely loved this campaign. Some people hate it. Some people think it was too much of a divergence from the norm. I don't care. I loved it.
All right.
Yeah, I'm tired of, like, shooter in a hallway. So anything that they do that changes that up is great.
Oh, they definitely changed it up. And there's, like, all these, like, little mini boss battles all over the map that you can kind of choose to go and engage at your will. And what's cool is if you unlock certain things at different times, it makes certain boss fights easier. It's almost kind of like the Mega Man effect, right? Like, if you go and get the one weapon from one boss, it's easier to fight the other boss with it because it's more weak to that, thing. So
yeah.
It's
I'd be down for a big open world Mega Man game if they want to do that.
Yeah, that would be interesting for sure. All right, well, let's move on to our retro section. This first story might just take me a couple minutes to set the stage for. There is a game called Heart of Darkness, and it came out originally on PC and PlayStation. It was a follow-up to Delphine Software's Out of This World, which was a well-regarded, well-loved platformer game back in '96, and the game actually didn't. I'm sorry, '98 was when the game actually came out, and it was originally intended as a Saturn title, but by the time it finally shipped, the Saturn was basically dead, so it never was released on Saturn. And some folks got a hold of a beta version of the game on Saturn that was used at the '96 Tokyo Toy Show. And unfortunately, a lot of times when we get these prototypes, you can run them on normal, consoles. But this particular game can't run on a standard Saturn because it wasn't optimized, and it requires a 6 megabyte memory expansion card that was never shipped for the Saturn. So it turns out that a homebrew bunch of folks have been working on larger memory cards, specifically called the Waska cartridge. And it allows homebrew developers to access up to 48 megabytes of memory on the Saturn. And they finally, or maybe finally is not the right fair term, but they've now enabled this prototype of Heart of Darkness to run on normal Saturns if you have this Waska cartridge in it. So it's kind of a cool bit of gaming history that, otherwise would be lost. Now, the Waska cartridges are an open source thing. You can't go buy them anywhere. You basically have to buy the parts and solder it together yourself. But hopefully we'll see a production run of it at some point in the future when commodity chips and things aren't basically impossible to get because of supply chain issues. So I love, seeing these little bits, these prototypes kind of brought back to life for us to go and experience and check out, what the developers were working on for a particular system. So lots of fun there.
Nice. I'm gonna talk about the second one or the third one here on this list just for a second, but I never would have thought about having Virtual Boy multiplayer in 2022. This is crazy.
This is a homebrew game called Elevate Speed. It is a racing game for the Virtual Boy, and it you can link two Virtual Boys together and play it head to head now. There were no retail games for the Virtual Boy that use the link cable support, but the console actually did have the concept of a link cable, and you can go buy one from a homebrew sources today. And so there is a way that you can, reasonably do this. I actually do have two Virtual Boys.
Is that like the Ethernet / modem adapter for the GameCube that nothing really ever used it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh.
Pretty much.
It's interesting that Nintendo always was like doing certain things, but they never always used what they like. It's kind of like the disk drive for the N64, right? Like that never really fully came to fruition, but they had plans for it. Yeah.
Well, even the Jaguar had a adapter called the JagLink that could do peer-to-peer or phone-based like a modem multiplayer. But yeah, so it's just kind of a neat little bit of history again, brought back from the dead with a bit of homebrew. So jumping back for a sec, so there is a free immersive emulator called EmuVR that allows you to play a bunch of different retro consoles in a nostalgic 3D bedroom, and it now has online multiplayer support, so you can do all sorts of fun online games. You and your friend both have to have the ROMs, but it uses RetroArch as its back end for emulation, so anything RetroArch support.
Oh, wow. Looking at the video for this is really cool. So there's actually these 3D avatars. They're in like a bedroom, and there's like a Super Nintendo and a TV sitting on a stand, and like the guy's picking up the Super Nintendo, flipping the switch off, taking the game cartridge out, putting another cartridge in, and turning it on and playing. That's really cool. I dig that a lot.
Yeah, it just seemed like a neat thing. And I mean, you can't beat the price, right? It's free. So certainly, and all right. RetroArch is
we're
well regarded.
We're gonna set up a play date. That's all I gotta say.
All right, fair enough. All right, so that does it for retro this week, but we do have some VR news. So with the Quest 2 and the original Quest, one of my absolute favorite features, and what to me puts the Quest head and shoulders above any other VR solution, is the fact that you can use it wirelessly.
Mm-hmm.
And you can use it wirelessly with a PC, providing your graphics, performance, getting beautiful frame rates and super high resolution visuals that are then wirelessly sent over Wi-Fi to your headset. But there is a limitation to this approach, which basically boils down to the fact that Wi-Fi was never really meant for this kind of real-time video transmission, and so it can drop frames of your graphics while you're in the middle of playing, which in VR can actually make you really, really nauseous if you don't have smooth, panning as you move your head. So the folks at Meta, formerly Facebook, who own Oculus, have a new technology that's in beta called AirLink Frame Insurance. And basically what this does is if you lose a packet, the Quest will automatically, dynamically generate a frame of video and insert it to replace the missing frame that didn't make it across Wi-Fi. So the thought is that this is going to dramatically improve the feel of Airlink, which is the brand name for wireless VR with the Quest from PC. So pretty cool bit of tech there.
Nice. After the Fall update adds horde mode and more. So After the Fall is kind of like a zombie shooter. I have not played this one yet. Have you played this one, Malphite?
I haven't yet. No, I haven't really done any VR super recently, but this one looked interesting because of the it has several multiplayer options, including PvP. So there are definitely some cool features to this, and they are doing like seasonal content. So should be interesting to see.
There's another VR one called The Wizards Dark Times is getting cooperative multiplayer for free, which, hey, I'm all down for co-op. Anytime you've got co-op going on. So, have you played The Wizards yet?
I played the original. I haven't played Dark Times yet, and gosh, I'm trying to think how to even summarize it. I mean, you feel like a wizard, at least in the original, and it really was a cool experience to be throwing spells around and stuff like that. So I could definitely see this being a blast in co-op.
Yeah, well, the PC VR version definitely has much more improved textures going on for the graphics, because there's the Quest 2 and then there's the PC VR. So play it on PC VR, I guess, if you can, and stream it to the Quest. You're probably going to have a much more enjoyable experience, it looks like.
Yeah. Mother Gunship is a game that an indie game that's done pretty well on PC and consoles. It's sort of a fun, silly game where you can just keep bolting on more stuff to your character's gun in a first-person shooter. So you can add a rocket launcher, you can add spread fire, you can add all these crazy things, and you have this giant gun that you're toting around. So they're doing a sequel called Mother Gunship Forge, which is going to be on Quest and Steam VR. And at least the preview, has been pretty well regarded. People are pretty excited about it. So it's a wave shooter, certainly, but it's apparently one of the best ones that we've seen so far in VR. So definitely looking forward to that.
Nice. Well, moving on to some PlayStation news, some not good PlayStation news, unfortunately. Gran Turismo 7 has had some issues recently. Apparently, they came out and did an apology because there was an outage for their, I guess, some of their online play stuff that prevented players from grabbing Gran Turismo 7 trophies. And also, that's kind of, tacked on top of the fact that there is a microtransaction system in the game, but they are pricing the prices for cars in this system at what I guess appears to be pretty insane prices.
Yeah, it's actually the real price of the car. So if you
not quite that bad, but it feels like
but the grind is real in that game, though. It's like I've got people that play it, and I've watched them, and it's just like, ooh, wow.
There's just been a lot where I've said, like, this is how you do microtransactions right, and this is how you do it wrong. This is clearly how you do it wrong, in my opinion. Like,
well, if there wasn't a microtransaction way to obtain the car, and the car still took a week to grind out the money to buy, then I would be like, well, that's the game, right? Like, get good, and they want you to drive like little hatchbacks and stuff, not just come out the gate. Because like I feel like Forza makes the opposite mistake, where it's just like, oh, welcome to the game. Here, have like 5 different kinds of Ferrari and a Bugatti and like other $1 million supercars. Have a good time, right? But I don't feel like I had to work for any of that at all. But then with Gran Turismo, the opposite is true. It's like, well, you start out driving mom's minivan, and you better get good in that minivan, because that's the only way that you're going to actually see like a BMW M3, and then get good in that. And, we'll see in a couple months when you get your Ferrari unlocked, kind of thing. So if the microtransaction stuff wasn't there, I would just say, well, hey, that's the pace that they set for the game. You know, it's not instant gratification. It's actually like gratification through effort. But because the microtransaction stuff is there and it's predatorily priced as hell, then it's kind of like, hey, we made this a real bitch, but hey, get your wallet out, swipe it away. I don't like that. So a middle ground would be nice.
Yeah. Well, moving on.
And if they wanted to microtransact, it would be kind of like what Forza did. It's like, well, hey, get the like super pass, and then you get like double rewards or whatever from your races because you like threw us $20 one time. It's like, okay, that's not egregious to me. But if you want like $20 for a car, then that takes me back to like MechWarrior Online days of like, hey, do you want like a Battle Master? That's $50 for one mech. Yeah. That's what it is.
Well, moving on to some tech news. AMD says its upcoming FSR 2.0 upscaler will offer similar or better than native image quality. AMD's FSR technology is their Fidelity FX Super Resolution, which is very similar to NVIDIA's Deep Learning Super Sampling, or DLSS tech, which essentially what that does is it lowers your in-game resolution and using a spatial upscaling algorithm to boost the frame rate back up again without adding any more load to the GPU.
In NVIDIA's tech, it uses hardware on the card to do that upscaling. So it's very powerful. AMD's solution, though, doesn't. And interestingly, it doesn't use those AI tensor cores because they don't have them on AMD. So this technology is actually platform independent. It's GPU independent. You can do it on all the GPUs. It does require in-game support, unlike some of the earlier technology, Fidelity FX. But this is a big deal to have equivalent image quality at lower resolution so that you can improve frame rate, especially with VR. So pretty exciting.
Well, Malphite's going to be getting his deck real soon, and one of the things that you can do with it is you can install Windows on the Steam Deck. There's support for it. Even Valve is going to be putting in support for a dual boot feature to where when you load it up, you can pick which operating system you want to use. But the nice thing about that, though, is Game Pass on the Steam Deck using the Edge browser is in beta.
Yeah. So you can, Edge has been on Linux for years now, and the latest beta actually allows you to play Game Pass games from the cloud. To be clear, this is streaming games, but you can stream those games right into the Edge browser on your Steam Deck. So
now I wonder if that'll let you also stream from your console if you have one on, like if you have an Xbox console. Can you? I think you can do the same thing that way too. Can you not?
I don't know if the browser implementation supports it yet, but certainly the tech does, right? So you should be able to do it eventually, if not right now with this beta.
Because if I'm going to be able to use this deck to Steam Link to my PC, why not also my Xbox? You know what I mean? Like I can play. Yeah, that'll be nice. One of the things that I've noticed now that I have a Switch is that when I'm, sitting watching TV with the wife, I can, have the Switch playing, something, on the Switch while I'm watching TV with her, because sometimes she'll watch something that I'm not quite engaged in. She just likes me being around and being in the room. It's kind of like, it's weird. It's how a couple things work. Sometimes you don't need to really be doing the same thing. You just want to be in the same room together. And so that's been kind of fun. So I'm looking forward to getting my Steam Deck as well and doing some of the same kind of stuff. So
yeah, for sure. All right, so Asus, check if you have an Asus router at home. Make sure you check for software updates. There's a pretty nasty botnet going around that is targeting Asus routers that have a security vulnerability. So just make sure you're up to date there. Okay, it's official. Internet Explorer is dead June 15th. For reals, Microsoft means it this time. They're not kidding around.
Yeah,
do you believe it?
Don't test it. No.
I could probably still find you some enterprise companies that are running IE6.
Oh yeah. So yeah, but Microsoft is saying no. Really, we're going to retire IE. It is a huge vector for security issues. So I'm sure it's just they want to get rid of it as much as we want to see it die. But fingers crossed, this actually happens. Sad bit of news. Do you want to talk about this one?
Well, I pronounce it, the GIF creator, Stephen Wilhite, has unfortunately passed. He laid the groundwork for the now ubiquitous form of communication. I guess, he created it back in the 1980s, which I didn't realize that GIFs were that old. But I guess he's now with Jod. If you pronounce it GIF rather than GIF,
right?
I guess
right.
I guess he's with Jod rather than God now.
Is that like Jesus?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't Jesus married to one of the Kardashians?
Yeah. I mean, and not to try and make light of his passing. The debate ever continues on GIF or GIF. I personally prefer GIF, but
yeah, I thought that was settled, that it was just GIF, and all the people who said GIF were wrong. But I guess there's still some debate in some quarters. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was so amazing that something that's so much a part of digital technology in 2022 was invented, in the 80s, almost 35, 40 years ago. So that was just fascinating to me.
Well, rip to Stephen Wilhite.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank God for image compression though, because back whenever I was on like 56K, you'd wait like 5 minutes for a picture to download or whatever. It was just like, oof. I can imagine what bitmaps would have been like.
For sure. Yeah, that would have been painful. So Fidelity FX, I mentioned it a few minutes ago in relation to AMD's new technology, but Fidelity FX is the current version. And one of the interesting things about Fidelity FX is it is game independent, or can be. Games can certainly build in support for it, but you can do it in the graphics driver alone. And this is how the Steam Deck is actually getting some of its performance bump, because it'll render at like 540p and then use Fidelity FX super resolution to bump that up to the 720p or 800p native to the screen. So that same technology that AMD enabled in the Steam Deck at the graphics driver level is going to be hitting the the Xbox. So we're actually going to get a system level option to do upscaling on the Xbox soon, which is pretty fantastic. So although the Steam Deck uses it to go from relatively modest resolution to 720p, on the Xbox you could imagine doing 1440p and then upscaling it to 4K, but getting those nice 60 plus FPS frame rates from the 1440p, but getting the image quality of 4K. That's kind of the dream here. So pretty darn cool. So
well, another piece of tech that's really cool is this new direct storage that's been getting worked on, where the GPU can make calls right to hard drives. And thanks to some of that technology,
hard drives. What?
Well, NVMe's, SSDs, you know what I mean, storage.
Yes.
Stewage. Now that is a technology that is coming to the Xbox and to Windows 11, I think Windows 10 too, but definitely to Windows 11 for sure. According to this, thanks to this technology, Forspoken now loads in only 1 second. Which
now that is from an M2 NVMe SSD, but it was 10 seconds before this technology was implemented, so it is a pretty massive improvement. I'm not sure that you would notice the difference between, that, but it does make it very promising that we'll see, faster and faster loading times in the future, which I think we can all agree will be very, very nice. As someone who sat through the minute and a half of elevator music in Mass Effect when you were moving around the ship, I am very excited about that, because they were masking the loading times with that elevator sequence. So.
Well, moving on to business and legal, calls for Valve to ship Steam Decks in more discreet packaging after apparent thefts. I feel like at this point in time, if you ship anything in like what the box says that it is that you ordered, that should always be a big no. Like there should be some kind of like standardization that says put this in a discreet box, just always. I don't understand. Why. I don't get why not.
Yeah, I don't know if people just didn't think about it, or they aren't aware that porch pirates exist, but it does seem pretty obvious.
Porch pirates? Is that like
people who steal packages off your porch?
Oh, I thought like they actually stole your porch. I was like,
sail it off down the road.
That would be carjacking if they stole your porch.
So, in China, it is illegal to do crypto mining now. But you can make a lot of money doing large scale crypto mining, at least depending on the commodity price of various cryptocurrencies. So somebody got caught trying to smuggle 160 graphics cards into China. Oh no, I'm sorry, 5,840 graphics cards into China. By relabeling the boxes to mask that they were actually graphics card, and Chinese customs caught them and confiscated $3 million worth of AMD GPUs.
Jesus.
So,
it's like I want to order these, but I want them packaged in laundry detergent boxes, please.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Can you do that, NVIDIA?
Well, speaking of China, they're continuing to crack down more on like a bunch of their online stuff, so they're expanding their online gaming limits to include live streaming and social media.
Yeah, well, China's worried that we're corrupting their youth with all this newfangled technology. So
we're corrupting their youth, but they're the ones that sent TikTok over here to make us do stupid dances and like shoot people with BB guns as a challenge. And
well, what's interesting about this whole like system is the Chinese company Tencent literally has its fingers in almost every industry in like the video game world. And so it's kind of like if you're trying to limit, like, then why do you invest? Or like why do you let these organizations at least invest so hard?
Because they have the ability to destroy the entire video games industry by pushing a big red button that's in China. That's why it's red, because it's in China. And yeah, that's why. Totes.
Anyway, just interesting stuff.
Yeah, well, speaking of interesting, Dr. Disrespect has a new game development studio that he founded, and it will be launching its first game in the next couple years.
Is it going to have Twitch integration?
No, I would imagine not.
Okay.
The game is called Midnight Society, and they're doing something interesting to promote the game and raise funds for the development. They are selling passes called Founders Access Passes. And it's only going to have, 10,000 of these available. They're $50 a pop. So, good way to raise $500,000, I guess. But what is the sort of twist to this is in the game you have masks, and these 10,000 people will have unique masks that are backed by an NFT. So basically there's a cryptographic, signature on the image that makes it unique to one person will be the only one to have that mask. Now, if you get a terrible mask and you paid $50 for it, sucks to be you, I guess. Like, you don't get to pick, it's randomly generated. But a lot of people are up in arms about this. They're frustrated and disappointed. Why are they making this an NFT thing?
Yep.
The masks are part of the character design, so the uniqueness is I guess a feature there, but there it gets even more convoluted where there's upgrades to this pass, where you can become the eyes, and then you can go further with that, and then you become a claw, and like there's this convoluted membership system. It's all very confusing, and I always get a little worried when game developers focus on this kind of stuff and not making a great game, right?
Yeah, and so some criticism here, just real quick. So the game studio, not the game, but the game studio is called Midnight Society.
Oh, I'm sorry, my mistake.
No, you're good. But the thing that kills me here, and where the criticism comes into play, is if you've ever watched any of Dr. Disrespect, like at all, he's always freaking critical of the games industry not doing like right things or whatnot. And then like I look at this and I go, WTF, dude. Like if like, do you not smell that NFTs are bad? Like,
well, it seems like a thing that you would do. Like, okay, we lead with the monetization thing that's hot right now because we want to get some investor money. And then after the money's in pocket, then we can just let that fade and never speak of it again.
Yeah, I'm starting to, like, I don't know. Everything about this guy just really starts to just frustrate me the more and more like I see anything about him.
All right, so the Micron CEO, the manufacturer of many of the chips that go in our memory and SSDs, says that the chip shortage is set to continue. This is contrasted, though, with GPU prices are starting to come down a little bit. We're actually seeing GPUs being sold at MSRP. So it looks like maybe you'll be able to get a GPU, but you're not going to be able to afford the RAM to go in your CPU, to go with your new build. So good news, bad news, I guess, on the components front for PCs.
Yeah, well, when they say that GPUs are coming down, does that mean they're only twice MSRP now instead of 3 times? Or am I actually going to be able to get a $600 video card for $600? Because that's the point where I actually buy one.
The high-end cards, like we're seeing 3080 Ti's at retail price now.
Which is what, like $1,200 or something?
12 or 14, yeah, depending on the model. So
yeah. It just kills me, man, that a video card costs what I paid for the whole PC, and that's actually MSRP for the video card.
Yep.
Like back when I bought a PC with a 1080 in it, the whole thing was $1,200.
Well, I mean, the only thing I'll say is that the 3080 Ti is more than twice as powerful, as the previous generation, right? So it is a lot more for the money, but it's not like they're still selling the 1080 or the 2080 either.
Yeah.
So you don't have a lot of choice.
Well, that's the thing is like if you need a PC, like I'm still playing on a 1080. It's not even a Ti, and I do pretty all right. And you can't sell me that if it's like, well, here's a 20% improvement, but I'm not really under 60 frames a second anyway right now with most of the stuff that I play. So it's a hard sell to me. But if it was like I could replace the whole PC for $1,500 and not $4,000, then sure, I might consider that. But right now it's more than double what I want to pay for the thing.
Yeah.
A thing I don't need, right? It's
Well, another way that you could bring down GPU prices is by stealing them. A Russian online retailer called Wildberries had 3 of its warehouse workers toss $38,000 worth of 3070 Ti graphics cards out a window to their accomplice who was waiting down below. And they got caught because they didn't sell them expensive enough. They tried to pawn them for $600 a piece to a pawn shop and to friends, but the cards go for $1,900. So people got suspicious, called the cops, and got these guys arrested. So I guess the moral of the story is if you're going to steal and sell stuff, you should know what you're selling it for a reasonable markup. I don't know.
Yeah, or don't just take it to a pawn shop, because it's a little sus whenever people pull up with 1,000 video cards at a pawn shop, right? Like, hey, do you want to buy this truck?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, speaking of not being safe from things, YouTube copyright strikes seem to be just a constant pain in a lot of people's butts, and their YouTube system's always been changing, weird, different, strange. But recently there's been a whole lot of copyright strikes against Destiny players, so a lot of Destiny content creators have been getting copyright strikes, including Bungie's own videos have been getting claimed for DMCA takedowns, and Bungie is curious as to what's going on because they aren't even the ones behind any of the copyright strikes, even to the other content creators. So they are trying to investigate what's going on with this. I think this just helps to highlight the fact that the system is so bugged with like Autobots, like being able like to do, not the Transformers, but like bots. Like bots being able to automatically just go in and just like flag a whole bunch of stuff, and then it is deemed almost as a legitimate thing, and there's almost no review process, it feels like, for these things. So because YouTube is so big, they can't just manually review all the things all the time. It's better to flag it first and then review it later, which seems to be a hurtful process, especially if you get flagged so many times in a row potentially, that it causes you to lose your channel entirely, and then you can't get a hold of anybody to recover that. Seems like a very volatile system is what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, it's certainly, YouTube creators have enough problems, the amount of content they have to create, gaming the algorithms to get recommended, and then to add this on top of it where you're, sort of in fear of your livelihood potentially. Pretty rough.
You would think that there should be like a better checks and balances system in there. Like if it gets flagged for DMCA, it gets taken, not taken down, but like hidden until someone can manually review it. That way, any of the content that's being flagged is removed from being viewed until it is properly vetted, whether it is true or not. And then that way it can help save people. I wish they would do something like that. Just take the video and mark it as a hidden thing until it's reviewed. It might take a while to get to it, but at least you're not hurting people's livelihoods.
Yeah, well, and that costs money, right? Which is not very attractive to Google or YouTube, I'm sure.
Oh no, some big company losing them some money.
Not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's probably why they haven't done it. So moving on to our funny and strange section, I wanted to let everybody know not to worry. We are going to continue our hard-hitting keycap coverage in 2022. We talked about a few different keycaps, I think, last news show or maybe two news shows ago.
Yep.
And that's going to continue because we now have adorable Kerbal Space Program artisan keycaps available.
These are actually kind of cool looking. I do like these.
They are the cutest little Kerbal faces in little astronaut outfits that you can replace your keyboard keys with. So, if that's your bag, you can check them out. Just do a quick search for Kerbal Space Program keycaps.
That's fun. I think those are fun. I like those. We talked about Elden Ring a little bit earlier. There's an Elden Ring data miner reveals what NPCs are hiding under their masks. So there's which I find fascinating that there's actually layers to some of these things. Most NPCs can be recreated so that we can finally see what they look like. I find that fascinating that there's actually layers to these characters, that there's actually more going on than just a flat matte like kind of texture on a wireframe.
Yeah. Somebody actually had to do the work to put that face on there. I mean, it might be auto-generated or something, but kind of interesting. And I don't know. I mean, who's going to see that?
I don't know, but it's crazy that detail exists. So
yeah. Journey, which this is the exploration game where you're kind of in a desert and you match up with other people. You get a longer scarf as you play through the game. And the game was originally named Dragon. That was a code name in development. And it this is hard to imagine. It was almost teen rated because it was going to be too bloody. Which I can't even think of any blood in the game. But apparently the the issue was that there were those scraps of scarves around, and the color that they chose, people thought it was blood on the scarves, and so they were like, "Oh, these poor little creatures got torn to pieces, and their scarf, was ripped up and covered in blood." And so that's why it was going to be rated teen. So all they did was change the color palette to make it clear that it wasn't blood. So pretty crazy. Bit of gaming history there for you.
Well, and back to China for a second here. Chinese customs arrests a man dubbed the Walking CPU for trying to smuggle 160 CPUs taped to his body, along with, I believe, a handful of cell phones. He had 16 cell phones strapped to his body via duct tape as well.
Maybe he was just playing a lot of Pokemon Go. Like, I think they're making some really unkind assumptions here for this poor guy.
It's 2022, and cocaine has been replaced with CPUs.
Apparently, tech mules, if you will.
Yeah.
Ooh, all right, what do we got next?
The Witcher 3, there is an event in the game that if you do a side quest, it's mentioned that this character only has 7 years to live. And somebody figured out, they fast forwarded the game through those 7 years and went back to find this NPC, and sure enough, they dropped dead. So they actually did put a 7-year kind of Easter egg in the game for people who are really dedicated. So that was kind of a neat little thing.
All right. Last one here. What do we got?
Well, just when you thought you'd seen it all, we now have expensive gamer slippers available.
It's interesting that we've shifted to this market where, because we've covered stuff like this before, where it's like gaming refrigerators, gaming apparel from like these big designer outlets that cost so much money, but it's just like expensive designer clothes for gamers is just a weird concept to me. I do not.
Is this like flip flops with RGB lighting or what?
It's not even RGB. They're just shoes. I mean, they're, it's a slipper, but like
a slip-on shoe. Yeah.
Yeah, a slip-on shoe, but it's $160 for the low top model or version and $175 for the mid top. So
that's why, because they're appealing to the shoe collector fetish out there.
Which, by the way, Jeff Goldblum has a series on Disney Plus about the world according to Jeff Goldblum, and he has an episode about the sneaker, and he goes around and he like interviews and talks to people who have these like shoe collections worth so much. If someone places a value on a thing, there's a market. You know what I'm saying? So it's like pretty nutty.
But that's something you smuggle out of instead of into China.
Yes, there you go. Well, that'll cover it for the news on this week's episode of the podcast. Head on over to our Discord at discord.otherworlds.gg for all this and more. We've got plenty of discussion and gaming going on over there. And we'll see you in the next one. This has been episode number 54.
Yeehaw.